Welcome back to another episode of The Family Album. I'm your host, AJ Sonari.
And I'm Matt Glass.
Last week, we discussed Metal Machine music by Lou Reed and Dopamine by Borns to celebrate our 50th episode.
Yes, it is unfortunate. I understand the means behind Metal Machine music, but it was not for me.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's an off week, and Family Heads, as you know, on every off week, we bring on a guest who gives us a theme for this week's album. So please welcome Dave, otherwise known as the Taste of Vomit.
Hello.
Glad to have on the show, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to do this, and yeah, I'm excited to get into these records.
Sounds good.
Happy to have you here.
Yeah. Before we hop in, though, give us a little bit your music background, kind of musical career, and just like your general music interests.
Yeah, for sure. My name is David. I make rap music as the Taste of Vomit. From Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I like long walks on the beach. No, wait. I want to take that. I want to apologize. I feel like people talk about that as such a cliche, as you don't have personality. But I legitimately, honestly, really love long walks on the
nice.
beach.
They're very refreshing.
And I hate
Beaches
that
are cool.
people say that as a
cliche.
Trash.
Yeah.
So if you like long walks on the beach, let's talk. But I make rap music. I've been doing so for a very long time. But yeah, I have a new record coming out this April 8th. It's called Relocating Grains of Sand. Recently put out the first single from that. I'm not sure when this episode comes out, but the second one might be out by then. We'll see. But yeah, April 8th, that record comes out. If you're into indie hip-hop music about feelings and emotions and things like that, definitely check it out.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I will link your Spotify in the description and be on the lookout for the new album.
Very exciting.
But what is the theme that you brought on to the podcast this week, and what are the two albums we'll be discussing?
So I think that the theme I had a hard time narrowing this down to a specific
concept
short thing. I think the theme is storytelling about some of the darker things in society that we don't like to talk about. I think that is the theme. And I love both of these records very, very much. Ironically, I feel like they came out around the same time.
Yeah, maybe a year apart.
4 or 5 months apart.
Yeah,
maybe
so.
a year. I'm not sure. But yeah, these records are really big for me. I'm a very big lyrics person, both in my own personal music and the music that I enjoy. And I think both of these records are top tier lyricism. I think they have a lot of similarities in the production. I think they have a lot of similarities in the themes. I think they have a lot of similarities in the tone.
Yeah.
A lot, I don't know. We can maybe get to this towards the end, but I think there's a lot of similarities, even though maybe at the surface level they're different genres or whatever. But yeah.
Nice.
What are the two albums you brought on?
I guess we should have said.
It's okay. Whatever order you want to do it.
Exactly.
But we're doing Armand Hammer, Haram, and Phoebe Bridgers, Punisher.
Yeah, two very beloved albums of the 2020s.
Yeah.
So far. What album would you like to start with this week?
Well, I guess Armand Hammer. I just have my notes open to that automatically, but I don't really have a strong preference.
All right, we're good with Armand Hammer.
Yeah,
so
sounds good to me.
Matt's going to take us away with a little bit of history.
So Haram by Armand Hammer, featuring The Alchemist, was released on March 26th of 2021 through Backwoods Studios and ALC. It is the fourth studio album under the rap duo name, and as I mentioned before, features the famous producer and beat maker, The Alchemist. Members of the duo include underground rapper Billy Woods, who is a personal favorite of mine, and East Coast rapper and producer Elucid. In conception, the album attempts to strike a fine balance between the prohibited yet necessary or even sacrosanct. This can be seen immediately with the album title, which is an Islamic phrase used by God in the 5 Islamic commandments. Haram.
Yeah.
Pretty much sums it up. So why'd you pick, I guess, Haram specifically?
I think that it's the most accessible of the Armand Hammer records.
Okay.
I think as a group, not including their solo stuff.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I feel like, the most famous or whatever.
Yeah, that album cover's pretty iconic.
Yeah,
It's beloved.
And I don't know. I really love this record. It's not necessarily I really love this record, but I'm a huge fan of both Woods and Elucid and Armand Hammer as a group. it's not my personal favorite, but I think it's really great. And I don't know. I just wanted to talk about it, I guess.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
We're happy to talk
Super
about
relevant too, you know?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But without further ado, should we hop into our little track by track?
Yes.
Bet. So we open up with Sir Benni Miles. I think this is definitely a very good intro to this entire album. Very much sets the tone. This very kind of like ominous, kind of like undercurrent that lies all over this album. You definitely get like a sense of both Woods and Elucide's personalities and the different rapping styles as well.
I love the sample used on here a lot. Like they do a lot of like reversing of audio, which is a really cool technique that I feel like I don't really see much anywhere else. It's funny that Earl Sweatshirt is seen on this album later because this very much feels similar to like some rap songs. Like there's definitely like a similar vein somewhere, but I think it very much sets the tone. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I cut you. I cut you. We're just gonna spend the whole episode apologizing back and forth. Sorry, sir. Like this is going.
It's like an average day in Canada.
But yeah, I don't know for sure. This could be very unfounded, but I believe that a lot of the reason that this record exists is because of Earl Sweatshirt. I think, he obviously has had a long relationship with Alchemist for a while now. And I think like he was just a big fan of Armand Hammer, because they're definitely like a cult group. They've had many successes throughout the 2010s and stuff, but this definitely was like a trajectory into maybe a next step of popularity and awareness and things like that. And I think Earl had a lot to do with like linking them with the Alchemist and stuff. And how you, I think both of you guys brought up the intro sample, just that like little vocal clip, I think sets the tone for this record so great. It kind of like, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, like I hate to interrupt your enjoyment or whatever. And it kind of like says like, hey, like, this isn't necessarily going to be a fun album. Like I think it's funny because I think people write Armand Hammer off as like very dark, and they can be and are. There is a lot of humor in there. Totally. There's definitely a lot of wit and silliness like in some of the lyrics and punchlines and stuff, but overall a lot of the topics are very dark. The music
serious.
Is very dark.
Yeah.
It's very heavy, and just starting with that sample and just being like
listen up.
Yeah. I hate to interrupt your enjoyment, but I have something to say. Dreams is dangerous. Like it's so. This song is really great to me, and some standout lyrics to me are like, "Don't make a promise you can't keep. Don't make a keepsake out of grief." I think that line from Woods is so so strong. And I love in this how they both hit like ocean metaphors, like Woods starts at, you're going to need a bigger boat. Like you're like krill in the cold deep or whatever. And then Elucid comes back in with his verse and talking about like a lot of fishing metaphors and crabbing and stuff, and like really playing off these things to talk about their experiences and things like that through these like water and ocean
metaphors,
boat, like motifs.
It's cool
stuff. Yeah.
It's like a nice, like almost like full circle moment between the both of them.
Yeah, for sure.
I think there's a very nice balance that the beats provide here with the lyrics being so like stark and like prominent and bold, even like salient, dare I say. But I feel like there's a nice balance between like the beats not exactly being cartoon, because that sounds a bit too like juvenile of me to say, but like providing enough studio imagery where it really makes the lyrics pop out in certain aspects between like some of the sound effects and then like some of the spoken like audio samples. Because oh my god, like it really does create such like a heavy image when you listen through the whole thing.
Very vivid pictures painted throughout.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up, we have Roaches Don't Fly. I think it's a really cool follow-up, and I really dig this sample. Almost sounding kind of like space jazz with like the synths and the drums. And I really like Elucide's energy on this track.
Oh my god,
it's like very intense, which like rips.
But it's like also like understated. It's very confident. It's not like, I feel like maybe like it's a little bit aggressive, but it's not like aggressive in a like attacky way. It's just like
stern,
very confident, and like and. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if this is supposed to be a takeaway from this track, but one of the biggest things that I found interesting was like the title, because, Roaches, they kind of like live in like the trash and like the worst parts of, I guess, the trash. And it's interesting because they have wings, but like they can't fly.
Yeah.
It's almost like the person who gave them the hands that they've been dealt is like kind of mocking them as if they have like almost the tools to like succeed.
But they can't utilize them.
And they're getting swatted down like as much as possible in this society. So I feel like that very much like struck a chord with me.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that is such a strong theme, and it's kind of a theme that carries out through the record.
Yeah.
That theme is very present in the first song as well. And something I also like love about this track so much, and kind of like this whole record, is that there's like a bass line. I feel like a lot of people might argue that it's like lo-fi production, or like a lot of people have this idea of what like lo-fi beats means and whatever. And the bass line sample is very like lo-fi and muddy. And then like halfway through, like this like guitar thing comes out, and it's so crisp and clean. And the way that it's layered on top is so like high, like it's not a lo-fi song. It's like so dynamic, and like that
clear.
Guitar comes in,
it like punches right through. It's such a good moment.
Yeah, I love this song a lot. I also love that they're a group, and this is their big, presumably a very big album for them. Doing a record with the Alchemist is very big, and to allow one another to do their own solo thing. Like this is just an Elucid track in a lot of ways, but it's also like not what he normally does in his solo stuff. Like it's just him on it. Like Woods isn't rapping. However, it's still like an Armand Hammer song. Like it's very much different than what
he would usually
does like by himself. And yeah, this track is fantastic. It's definitely
a really good follow-up.
For sure.
Very good follow-up.
It is funny you mentioned that like having this like Elucid solo trap be like very different from what he usually does. Billy Woods also has like a moment on that like a little later, which is really cool, which we'll get to. But I do like how you pointed that out. But if you got nothing else, we can move on to Matt's next opinion.
This is more of a silly one. I don't know if you've listened to Boards of Canada, but I felt that the bass riff really reminded me of like Roy G. Biv.
Oh, nice.
Like something about it. I was like, I think just like the almost clashing production styles between like the more muddy stuff and the more crisp stuff. When that bass line was kind of powering through, it reminded me of like the riff in Roy G. Biv a little bit.
It's a great bass line.
Sure.
Yeah.
As the most accessible album off of Music as the Right to
Exactly,
Children.
yes. Next up, we have one of my favorites from the album, Black Sunlight. I think like just like the overall sample on this track is like it's one of the more accessible ones. Definitely a bit of like a lighter step from what we've been hearing previously. The backup vocals combined with like the digital synths that like twinkle through both channels is such a great choice. I love that. And the vampire metaphor that's like painted throughout this track, and like the overall sentiment of like staying strong in darker times when the system wants you to fail is just a really good message.
Oh my God, yeah. I think Elucid really like stole this track like so much.
Yes, for sure.
He fucking ran with it. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, one of the lines that I really love that Elucid does in his verse is like, I don't want to explain self, I don't want to constrict love, I want to grow kale, I ain't never hold myself to make the song sell. Like just talking about like I am who I am, and all these things. And I also in the beginning talking about like lighter moments or whatever, using the AI sample like in the Woods verse is so fun. Like, it's very interesting, and the way that he uses that to accent what he's talking about as well. Is this performative or praxis? Are we talking about practice? Oh, we're talking about practice. And then I don't know. Yeah, I love this. This song is really great.
And then Kayana, I think she's through the feature on here with the backup vocals. Yeah, she's excellent. Like her voice is fantastic. And I do like how the song's kind of split in half in terms of just like tone, because like the lyrics are a lot more negative in the first verse, but in the second one it's like a little more uplifting, which is pretty cool. Kind of like a progression of like the narrative.
The sample is like smooth and harsh at the same time, which I can't really explain.
I think that could be said for like the whole album. Yeah, which is really cool.
I really felt like here especially though.
Move on to the next track, Indian Summer. I really like the woodwind heavy sample on this track. It's a very, very nice change of pace. Looks like the clarinet kind of going through both channels. It's very cool.
It was giving me that good anxiety.
Yeah. That perfect sour.
The one we all know and love. You've had anxiety before. Have you ever had good anxiety?
Just listen to a clarinet,
that good old Indian summer anxiety.
colloquially known.
I actually wrote down the lyric that I liked from this track. It was, I put a neat hole in Indiana Jones's fedora.
Yeah.
For that Somali Torah. We lit up the night like Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, that is a filthy fucking line.
Yeah.
And also goes back to something that I love about this record and both of these records that we're talking about is like the way that the artists like go back to things. So like the line that you just brought up is referencing back again to talking about like roaches and stuff in in a couple lines before that and whatever, and like just how they all bring it back is brilliant as a writer. And I think this song in particular is one of my favorite examples of what both Woods and Elucid do so well and how they are so different. Like I feel like Woods, like his lyricism is like effortlessly wow words flowing from like literal to metaphor and doing them both at the same time in a way that still makes sense, and it could be read as a literal thing but it's also a metaphor at the same time, and we're falling in and out of this thing without like talking about if it is like the motif or metaphor or if it is literal, and just going back and forth. And he's such an incredible storyteller, and it's so like personal related and very individualistic and things, and how Elucid is so like poetic and like you really have to like dive in, and it's very like deep and thick and like like I feel like Woods writes like a novelist. Like I feel like he's like writing like something that you would read in like 11th grade honors English or something like that. And like Elucid is like this like like just like a
poet.
Like a 1600s like
I like a lot of his verses on this album, like they almost sound like a poetry reading, like which is really cool. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that was it.
Cool.
Yeah, again, we're just triangle of sorriness.
Exactly. That's the theme for this episode.
That's the log line for our podcast, actually, whenever we have guests.
Yes. Be ready to apologize.
Except when Tom's here.
No, there are no apologies on Tom A's albums.
Kind of circling back to that line, too, like, given the fact that this album is it's rooted in a lot of like Islamic cultural undertones.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool how there's such a biblical aspect to the struggle being presented like throughout this entire record, like making it something like so unfortunate, but like bringing it to the intensity of something so like such like a vivid image as like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, for example. Like, I love the way that they kind of brought it to like a new height of imagery. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to kind of like keep throwing it back to the title and like revitalizing it, I guess.
They are very good at keeping the concept up. Next up, we have Aubergine. I do like how they kind of like switch up the formula a lot on this album. Like it's not formulaic. Like they're always just kind of going off like off beat, which is cool. The sample does sound like a lot darker. Like there's very like ominous droning keys, like a really heavy drum beat, which I like a lot. And I really like how Elucid really plays with like his flow style and just kind of like goes off the beat sometime, but he's always still right on time.
Yeah.
That's like one of my favorite like rapping techniques like ever.
This is also one of my favorite Elucid moments on this record. And one of my favorite things is in his verse, he repeats "I'm in the now" a bunch of times to where it starts to blend into sounding like I'm in denial.
Okay.
And like such a crazy way. He also does this thing in a lot of his music where he says this very like simple, like kind of like concept that has such a heavy connotation. And I think like a great example of that is just because I wander doesn't mean that I'm lost. Because I wonder doesn't mean that I'm stumped. And I think like that's such a like, you know, like straightforward sentiment or whatever, but it's like so heavy in like its implications and things like that. I also love the wander versus wonder, like
the play on words,
and stuff like that. And then he's so great. And then Fielded coming in, who's the singer in the middle, like on the sample, the I feel love here as the beat falls apart and switches a little bit,
building up to like, Billy's verse. That's so cool.
It's so awesome.
And Woods has so many great lines in here. You know, I love like he like does this thing where, you know, my mother's love is measured in eyedroppers, and then talking about like his third eye and flipping these like sight things, and then the Westworld people reboot and recycling the same shooting is such a great reference and stuff. And I think like when I was listening to this record and stuff, we were watching like the first season of Westworld and stuff, so I was just like
perfect timing.
I was like, hey, I know that thing.
It's like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme.
I know the thing. But yeah, what a great like metaphor and reference too, like just talking about like how like it's such a cliche in hip hop or whatever to talk about this gang life or street life or whatever, and just being like, hey, is that really your life, or is this just something that you're
performing?
You know, and to use that to describe that, I thought it was a very interesting and kind of fun and way to do that, I guess, you know, and just from like a writing standpoint and things.
Definitely agree.
Same here. I really like the like sonically with this track. I loved like the crash of the keys in this beat, and how it's just like so it feels so like solid, and then you kind of have this like ghostly like synth over top of it too. It's like there's just a constant unnerving with this album.
Totally.
Sure.
Done so well.
Next up we have God's Feet. I love the Rhodes keys on this track. Like that sample is beautiful. And I do really like the switch up of the formula on this track too, because it's like mostly centered on choruses instead of like the verses, which is nice. And then I really like Elucid on this track as well. He just like really hammers like the point home with his verses at the very end.
Yeah. And just him singing too. I feel like later on, I like it later on a lot more. Yeah. But this is still really good and interesting. And like, I don't think I've ever heard, you know, him sing or anything like that. And he has a great singing voice. It's very interesting, and it brings something new to it. Like for sure. And like how we don't really even get into the rap verse until like 2/3 of the way through or whatever, you know? And
I feel like this almost feels like a bit of an interlude. Like
in a way.
Maybe because of not just like the length, but like also I think like the samples and like the clips that they use take up like a good like portion of the song. So it almost kind of feels like
a skit kind of.
The skits, but like same feeling as like Food by MF Doom. How they have like those little little segue like
cartoon
clips,
snippets,
which I think really adds to like what they're talking about. I do like this track, but I think I wouldn't return to it outside of the context of this album. But I definitely like it for its pacing and like what it does for that much at least.
I agree.
Yeah.
Next up, we actually have another favorite of mine. We have Peppertree. I really like this one a lot. This is Billy's centered song. This is just him. Basically talking about it's a tribute to Jamaica and like his deceased family members, I believe. Yeah, because he talks like a lot about death, and it's basically memories of a funeral, which is like very powerful. And the beat is also like really cool. It's all in reverse, I'm pretty sure.
No, well, this is what I feel like The Alchemist, like this is proof of The Alchemist being a total genius.
Yeah.
Like this beat is crazy. I feel like the main thing is reverse, but I think the trumpet is forward.
Okay.
And how they seem to like match keys and stuff is just like, what, dude?
How do you think of that?
How do you do something backwards and then do something forward and make it in
like
the same
blend.
thing? I was just like, that is brilliant. This beat is crazy.
And it fits just like the overall like tone of the song like perfectly too, with like the themes like invasion, like colonizing, gentrification, and like I like how that's used like all throughout this album, but you get like a big sense of that on this track specifically. And I do really like the outro because you do really hear that sample like at the end. It kind of gives it that like chance to shine, which I dig.
It almost like makes it have this otherworldly sort of vibe.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's a really nice touch.
Which makes sense for like the death connotations on this track.
For real. And sort of this weird, like almost like inhumane idea of like having to just carry on as people are like dying all around you. Like that's insane.
Like the juxtaposition of like the funeral party with like kids playing outside.
That was crazy. And I think that's like what's so cool about producers like The Alchemist, because they know how to use a lot of these sound effects and like studio imagery, but it's not like cheesy on this album.
Very tasteful.
It's cool to see him in like working in much more of like a darker context than like a lot of other rappers I feel like that he works with, or even his solo stuff where it's just like the straight beats.
Which is because he really can like work with an artist. Like, you know, when you hear like an Alchemist and like Mobb Deep or whatever. Like it's like very catered to them. And then when he does something with like Action Bronson or whatever, it's very like that.
Yeah.
And then this is unlike either of those.
Exactly.
And it's just like how he can like really tap into what the energy of the artist is doing is, and be so malleable and be so great at 40
fitting their tone.
different styles is incredible. Like he's a genius. And this is such a great example of why he's a genius.
I totally agree.
It really shows his range as like a creator and an artist. I feel like one last thing that I want to say is I love like the ending with that cut, like repeating sample over and over. And it's just how like it never resolves itself to just add to the eerie factor of like, all right, well, got to keep going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something about that. Just, I love the macabre nature that it adds.
It really sticks with you. Next up, we have Scaffolds. This interesting observation. The sample sounds like Danny Brown, even though I don't think it is.
So I wrote exactly that in my notes.
Yeah.
I literally heard because what is the thing that he says exactly? It's like somebody has to hear about this or something like that. Or it's somebody needs to hear this. Yeah. I thought there was a Danny Brown feature on this. I was about to be like, oh, this shouldn't be funny. We shouldn't. This is not the point in the album where we should have this be comedic.
Well, it's funny because like this is slightly off topic, but I don't know if you like listen to Maps like as well.
I have, yeah.
But yeah, his feature on that, so the Danny Brown feature on that record is so out of left field and wild. So it'd be really funny. Yeah.
They brought it in. It'd be in character.
Yeah.
He just kind of appears. But then the thing is, regardless of what the overall message of the album is, you just don't hate it. That's the thing about him. He's a very beloved, I feel like, member of the rap and hip-hop community.
Yeah, no, I love Danny Brown.
He's great.
Even on like Pack a Punch on the No Hands album by Joey Valence and Bray. Like that shit was gas, honestly. But I'm very glad I'm not the only one who thought that Danny Brown was going to show up.
I was like, oh, word?
I was like, wait, what?
But yeah, I love this. This song is so great. The drums are insane.
Incredible.
I love it, dude.
Insane.
The
The
heavy
little
percussion.
like tom,
man.
Super
comes
tom
into
heavy.
the thing. Like the drums are my favorite, which is funny because I feel like this record isn't so drum heavy.
Yeah, definitely not.
People throw around that phrase of like drumless hip hop or whatever, the rock Marciano and Ka like kind of stuff, and people lump Armand Hammer into that. I don't think that's totally fair. But this record doesn't have a ton of drums, but when they do come in, this song is nuts. The drums are crazy.
They're used with purpose, which is great.
Yeah.
I love like the range. I don't think we've talked about this song yet that has this, but there's one track on here that just has like a ride cymbal as like the beat. And I just think it's so cool how they're able to just use like the full range
of percussion.
Range of percussion, just like capabilities of the kit to just like
to lay down a beat
and portray what they're trying to portray and just yet again unnerve me even more.
But yeah, I love the Woods line. Always late with the epiphanies. Like Mike could have handled that differently. At least you could have had a hand. At least admit you had a hand in your misery. Like I feel like that's so powerful. And then he goes on to be like, belief has always been dangerous to me. Which again, like I said before, like reverting back to the first song and how we all tying this all together as this is one work of art. This is all a continuous thing, and there's always two sides of the story. The gory details is online. I feel like Maury, which again, like
the humor,
about, people like it is dark, but there is a lot of
there's like levity.
There's a lot of wit and funniness. Woods is funny, and like
which is good to have on like an album like this.
Yeah, for sure.
He has a song. I forget what album that it's on. There's like an album I think that he either has by himself or that he's on with like another person where it's like a house, like a really beat up looking house. And he has a song called SpongeBob, and I love the chorus of that one. The whole operation underwater. But like he has the way of like using that humor, but also kind of not taking away from the actual seriousness of what he's trying to talk about.
Yeah. Just like a brief moment of levity rather than a switch up of the tone, which is cool.
Yeah.
Next up, we have probably my favorite track on the album, the biggest one. We have Falling Out of the Sky with Earl Sweatshirt.
Yeah.
I love the sample on this track so much. It's great. And Earl is like also just incredible. Like he has such a good feature.
they play off each other like so well.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, and I think that I think because Earl is so big in the art rap or indie rap space or whatever you want to call this, underground, whatever, you kind of expect like them to not really hold their own, but they're toe to toe, if not better than him on this. And like, I'm not dismissing Earl's verse. Earl's verse is incredible, but Woods and Elucid are right up, like
they hold their own,
maybe even better than his. Like, I love, first of all, how the beat is such a stark contrast to the rest of the record. It's very like
very happy, warm, bubbly. It's like a shuffle,
which lends it great to the subject of like, you know, these summer memories. And again, like something that happened earlier in the record, talking about summer and bringing it back and things like that. And I also love how each of their verses, they're all stories about summer, but they each take like a different point of time. Like Earl is very much talking about what he's experiencing right now in the summer, and like talking about his dad's passing away and it's his birthday again, and feeling whatever. And then Woods is talking about kind of like the recent past, you know, but a summer story of like maybe when he was in his 20s or whatever. And then Elucid like talking about his childhood. And there's so many great lines. Earl's my father's body swollen behind my eyes, I ain't cried for him in time, the return solar, we ride forward, reverse not working. Like, you know, just the wordplay of this, like, you know,
like feeling of grief.
And just feeling it so heavy, but not letting it cry, so you feel swollen behind your eyes because I'm not letting it go. And I, you know, it's so powerful. And Woods' verse is incredible. Again, his like visual storytelling is nuts. And then Elucid at the end, so like, oh my god, Elucid's verse at the end is so good.
It's great. Like, I love it.
So good. Like 89 find Air Max 90s first run, like playing off like the numbers of like, you know, this is a story that takes place in 1989. He finds Air Max 90s, the 89, 90, and then talking about shoes. It's just first run. It's the first run of Air Maxes, and also first run, literally running
with those shoes.
The shoes is brilliant. And then like, I also love the line of like thumbing through 70s ebony mags, dripping red icy on the pages. Like, that's such a great like summer camp thing, like finding a little like softcore pornography,
magazine,
like, you know,
sharing with your friends,
and just like playing into that. And also like the effects when he's like, you know, talking about I learned how to swim in a pool where the boy drowned last year. I think I heard the voices in the deep end or whatever, and then the beat like has like
the
a
muffled
limiter like and compression thing.
So it sounds like he's underwater. It's such a good moment.
So great.
It's an amazing use of studio imagery. And this is like kind of more of like a sillier example of like the walking so you can run motif in this track. But when he's like, we all knew the Isleys before the Beatles. I love that line so much.
I think like everyone like really does get their chance to shine, and I love how each of their styles is like so different, but they all blend together perfectly and they play off each other so well. Like Elucid's like really, he has like such a nice change of pace at the end. Like he really pushes like the shuffle feel of the beat and just like goes the fuck off on the beat like it's nothing. This is just a great track all around. I love it.
It really is. Almost feels kind of like a centerpiece.
Yeah, which I guess makes sense for like where it is on the album, like what comes afterwards, because it gets like a little more dark after this point.
This is more of a silly observation, but there's along with Billy Woods, there's an artist who's not hip hop whatsoever by the name of Will Wood. And AJ and I have talked about him many times on this podcast, and there's this one line where Billy Woods goes, hurt people.
Oh my god.
Which is an actual title of a Will Wood song.
Put that
so
together.
I feel like we're creating like a Gravity Falls like roadmap of like
tying it all back around.
The normal album really does tie into Haram in the sneakiest ways. It's just very funny to think about because Will Wood is the complete opposite of what Billy Woods is.
They could not be any more different.
Where Billy Woods is like so like amazingly literate and just eloquent in everything he writes. Willwood is just super like
Scattered,
stream of
yeah.
consciousness, like
Which is very funny. I don't know anything about this artist that you're talking about, but it's very funny because when you use like Billy versus Will, like Will clichély sounds more sophisticated than using the term Billy. So it's just funny that you brought up the like it feels like the opposite or whatever, you know.
Damn, that's such. I didn't even put that together, Matt. That's wild.
I'm here to make the connections.
Exactly.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
That's why specifically Will pays me the big bucks.
He paid you to mention.
Yeah, my album's like Haram. Yeah, yeah. People consider my album the Haram of
Tumblr.
the post musical theater.
Dude, what an album.
Oh man.
Let's see your DMs. I'm not convinced that he did not pay you to say this. I don't trust.
Yeah, I'm an op. Sorry, guys.
You know that you have to say like this is a paid advertisement.
That's true. They do put that criteria in there. That box will be checked when this goes out. Oh man. Next up we have Wishing Bad, which is such a tonal shift from Falling Out of the Sky. It's like way more sinister. It has like that minor key with like almost like digital sounding beat. Like the elongated delivery of like the clipping and clicking bars is like super ominous. I really like Amani's chorus. It really just reflects the dark aura of this track. And again, Elucid has that confidence that he had on Roaches Don't Fly.
Yeah.
So I like that comes back too, but with like a more kind of like serious tone. It really like sounds like it's like a scary story, like the way he like delivers it, which is really cool.
I mean, some of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, this track is really incredible. I love again, like going back to the Alchemist, like post production kind of stuff, like how he like clips the thing on purpose when he's like, you know,
clipping and clicking. Yeah.
It's like, you know, and then we do that like in the vocal track and stuff. And also I'm such a huge like Curly Castro fan. His verse is incredible in this, you know, iconic, the, you know, fuck Puff, I hope his survivor's remorse keeps him fucked up is such an iconic line. And also something that Castro does really, really well that I also like to do it as an artist. I know, like, you know, other people do this as rappers and stuff, but I feel like Castro has such a unique way of like incorporating like rappers' names into his lyrics and using it as like a sentence and stuff. And like, he kills it on this track. He does that, you know, often, but he kills it on this track with that. And just like, you know, Public Enemy, Carry the One, and just he does all those things. And he's so great at that. And yeah, this track is really dark and heavy and this is a great moment on the record. Totally. Especially after such a
upbeat,
like at least sonically, like a more upbeat, and even lyrically, like, you know,
the memories of summer.
Some of it is sad and stuff, but it's not like this is kind of like evil and malicious and stuff. And
that line that you were starting to like say with the Public Enemy #1, that whole thing where it's like Icarus melted his wings to carry his son, Georgetown wasn't all good, Othello Harrington, Vic Page went eye for an eye until he carried guns, like just Jesus Christ.
Castro's crazy.
Fucking line after line after line. I feel like this track just uses the 5 minutes so well. And like it's so cool that like at this point you're not even really getting fatigued by what you're listening to. Yeah. Again, another silly observation. I promise I'm not trying to discredit this album at all. This album's fantastic.
Of course.
It's just I think it's funny that Billy Woods, he pronounces archipelago, which is like a group of islands. Archipelago already sounds like a Harry Potter spell, but the way he says it, he's like archipelago, and it's like, wow, you just
the accent.
You made it sound like even more of a thing than it already is. Like, the syllables sound even more like cumbersome than they usually do. I just thought that was really cool. I like the way he just puts different emphasis on like different syllables of the word.
Maybe he actually is like casting a spell.
Archipelago. What do you think it does?
Does it create a group of islands?
Whoa.
That's such a useless spell.
Well, that's meta. Yeah. That's like there's layers and layers of that.
I think that's everything I had to say about this track. Just very well paced and very well placed.
And it also pairs well with the direct next track, Chicharrones. These two very much kind of go together.
Oh yeah.
Like the sample is like super hazy, almost sounding like a dream, and it feels just like a warning with like how ominous the sample is and just like how like intense they're delivering their verses. And I like Quell Chris being on the chorus, giving him like the spotlight. I just think it's a very nice follow up to Wishing Dad.
Yeah, I also am a huge Quelly Chris fan. He's so good. I also love how, like, again, like going back to this thing about talking about how like it's a very serious and heavy record, and then just the fun, also like not the fun in the subjects, but like the fun and the humor in the writing of like just the wordplay of just keep on these pig themes, like it's all pig themes and stuff. And there's also like so many heavy like ideas, like the whole like, which is maybe like controversial, but like the whole you got to kill the cop in your thoughts like idea, and just talking about, you know, they say they hate the cops, but the minute something off they want to use force. I'm just here, you know, I just work here, I'm not the boss. Like this idea of like I'm not gonna comment obviously like on the Black experience or anything like that, but like if he meant like street life and things like that, like talking about this idea of like street life and you know, drugs and things like that, and just like how like very often also like in my personal experience and being in proximity to like those worlds where people talk about like, you know, I hate the cops, like F the cop, like whatever, but like in a lot of ways they are policing the other people, like policing people in a different way. Like you're just the one who's doing the thing, and like that's such a idea that you don't hear talked about a lot, you know what I mean? And he specifically is referencing that in like Black culture, but you know, I don't know about that, but like in terms of like street culture and things like that, like it's a very interesting idea. And
sorry, my bad. I was just really captivated by what you were saying. I forgot that I have notes of my own too. No, yeah,
captivated, like cat, like bust a cat.
Well, it all ties back together. Hey. Whoa.
It really suits the moment. It suits. I don't know. I'm done.
I think like this track very much represents the album cover so well, especially as they start like this is the one where they start like really going into the whole advertising of like eating the roast pork and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like they're making it like almost sound like appealing and unappealing at the same time, which is just so cool, like wordplay wise. Yeah, no, it's almost like sickening to listen to, but at the same time, just sort of like, here we are.
Yeah.
It's wild. I also just love how the beat like swells in between all the snare hits. Like it's so like, it almost gives like a nauseating factor to this track. Like I can't explain it, but
which just makes sense for the concept. Yeah.
I was telling AJ earlier too. I don't know. I'm sure you know a lot about the album. They apparently got flamed on Twitter by PETA for the album cover depicting animal cruelty.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, but also that's in any butcher shop.
Yeah.
Walking down the city. Like, you know, but yeah, that's interesting. I don't know that story in particular, but I'm definitely believe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, his verse is so incredible in this. I love how he does this thing that I love when artists do. I just like when other people reference themselves, and I think it gives another like layer of context if you know that thing, like, you know, talking about doing the history will absolve itself like reference. That was like Billy Woods' big like breakthrough record, and like using it in this song to reference back and things like that. And then Quelly Chris, you know, both his hook like is so, I love his hook so much, you know, all the fun like pig wordplay and things like that. But when he gets into his verse, like, you know, first of all, Quelly Chris's flow is crazy. He's so fun. Totally. Like it's so, his tone and voice is so unique. And then, when he hits the line, the US of BDSM, hogtied, shove an apple in your mouth, in your face, is such a fun line. Like I love that. Like, you know, US of A, US of B, like A, BDSM, like, you know, and he does a bunch of like letters before that too. And the writing aspect of that is like very appealing to me.
Yeah.
I see why.
Yeah. I really appreciate like your dissection was like rap lyrics. Like,
No, for real. Same
yeah,
here.
like it's very like enlightening.
I guess I do this, so
Yeah,
I'm
as a
little bit
musician.
more aware of like when other people do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is top tier examples. Like, this is yeah.
Yeah. Next up, we have Squeegee. This is a track that I like a lot too. Just like the overall sentiment about like trying to like self improve, but like not being able to because of like either internal or external factors, and how easy it is to fall back into those habits you're trying to break through. The sample is really nice. I really like the swing beat and just like the minor keys and like that classical piano. I just really like this track a lot.
It's definitely one of the more, like, surprisingly, one of the most depressing,
Yeah.
I feel like, tracks on the record lyrically. I think this is the only time on the album where I don't think like Elucid like misses or anything like that. Like he's still very much contributing, but I think like I'm not as large on like his flow on this one. Maybe I would have to listen again and form a better opinion, but like honestly, I don't know. I think also even like the best albums, we always say on the like here on the podcast, like it's hard to like hold attention for like this long, like this many tracks deep. But I think like honestly though, even if it was the one that kind of fatigued me the most, it still was pretty good because like Billy Woods' flow on here was also considerably pretty good. The piano, I would also agree in that sample, just again like having that single like chord hit, but this time it like sounds like really distorted and like just like messed up. I love it.
Yeah,
cool.
I think this is a great example again of like Woods' visual storytelling, his imagery, his use, like the way that he writes is very much, to me at least, feels like very much from like a literature standpoint. Like I feel like I'm reading a book. Like it's very much I can see myself in those like
Scenarios,
places and stuff. Like getting wet in the halls. It smells like the morgue. Like you feel like you're in there. Like it's such a great example of that.
It's also just such an interesting like headspace to be in too. Like he talks about how like paranoid he is walking home and like just when you're in that state of like paranoia and just really like on edge and just feeling really jumpy in the environment you're in, like you're not going to be in the right frame of mind. And it's sad to like think like, oh man, I want to get better, but like the conditions around me are like holding me back from like really
fully achieving that
and trying to be like healthier of an individual, both mentally and physically. So it's because when you have paranoia just constantly like in your life all the time, it does make it really, really hard to like flourish and grow. So
which again is such a, again, like I feel like we keep repeating the same things, but like again, it goes back to this thing of like tying the whole album into a central theme and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, this is a lot of like what we were talking about, like on the first and second songs and in a new way and everything, but talking about like, especially like the Black experience and just growing up in certain environments in general and just like circling that back to the beginning of the record and continuing these themes of just like, trying to break free of these things, feeling systematically oppressed and just things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a good example of all that.
for real.
Next up, we have the penultimate track. We have Robert Moses. I really like the lyric, like, "Can God forgive us what we've done to this world?" Like that's just that's like apocalyptic.
It's heavy as fuck, dude. Oh my gosh.
I noticed throughout this this album, Billy Woods has like more kind of like a legato, like kind of smoother flow, whereas Elucid has like more staccato, like right on the beat. But they switch it up a lot. But here they kind of switch styles, which is really cool. With Elucid being like more legato, and Billy Woods like staying on beat with the staccato flow, which is really cool. And they also have a reference to King Crimson, so I like that. But I think this is a nice penultimate track.
With the whole motif of can God forgive us for all we've done, like the oppressors oppressing the Black community with all that power for like just the two of them, like can he forgive us breaking the haram like their whole life for such a long time, like the people who are involved in like gang violence, even though they're in many cases it's like to survive, like can we be forgiven even though these again are the cards we've been dealt here? It's such a real like question, and I think the way that they repeat a lot of the lyrics in here, it's so fascinating because like it's weighing heavy on their mind. Like will this be affecting me? Like, in examining my conscience, does this affect like the idea of me being like a good person? It's such like a heavy thing, especially when like there weren't a lot of options or avenues to go down.
Yeah.
So it's, again, the pacing is just remarkable on this track thematically.
Yeah, and I love the saxophone sample in this. It's so
totally
enjoyable to me. I don't know why. Like, I love that sample so much.
I do like the way that like the samples are utilized on here, especially having like a reeded instrument gives it sort of like a weird like scummy like jazzy feel to it. It's like, it's really, really cool.
Scum jazz it might be my new favorite genre of music
that we coined here together on the family album.
Do you guys want to start a
Scum Jazz
Scum
band?
jazz? Absolutely.
I call dibs on playing the Scum.
Just like a bucket of slop.
Just like squishing my hands in it, just like
That's awesome. If we got nothing else, we can move on to the last track, Stonefruit, and this is the track I believe you're talking about where Elucid gets to sing again.
Yeah.
And it's such a great like closer, like just having him just like be like very vulnerable and just like sing as opposed to rapping like he's done most of like the rest of the album is such a nice choice.
Yeah, I think this is a great comment on moving forward.
Yeah.
It's a moment of hope when there's a lot of hopelessness earlier on. It's such a like, it's not like a happy ending, but it's a hopeful one. It's a we have the possibility of doing some, you know, and
like
whatever.
change,
And Elucid singing is incredible, and I hope that he explores that a little bit. You know, if I'm being biased as a fan, I hope that he explores that more
On his Scum Jazz career.
Yeah. If he wants to do a feature on our new Scum Jazz record, you know. But yeah, no, it's so credible, and he's so powerful, and and just like that one part where he's like, I really came in on a cyclone.
Yeah.
And the beat comes
and it drops out. Yeah.
like, it's not like, oh man, it feels so great. And and then when Billy Woods comes in and, you know, his like, and just like she drank rosé out of the skull, but held it as gentle as my living head. Like, also like they both do this thing in this record, especially Woods, but both of them do it. And all of their music, they do it often, where like a lot of times it kind of just like ends, and sometimes not in a way that like, I feel like when you listen to like a lot of rap and a lot of rappers and stuff, you can feel like it's like, oh, this is the end of this. And like they'll like just hit something really heavy and you expect them to talk about it a little bit more. He's like, nah, think about that line. Just think about that and whatever. And I love how Woods does that in this, and then coming back and whatever, and then just like the harmonizing and stuff, the way the track falls apart at the end. I'm not so knowledgeable of music theory, but to me, as a very ignorant listener, it feels like the way that this song dissolves and ends very much reminds me of the opening like little melody thing before the sample in the first song. It feels like it's supposed to be
like repeat, like a loop.
Like it feels like it's like a musical resolve. I don't know that. I don't know shit about music theory or keys or whatever, but it feels like it resolves with the beginning of that of the first song,
as if like the cycle starting all over again. Yeah.
And I love that idea, if that's true. If not, I apologize for fake news alert. Fake news.
Again, I got so caught up in just listening to what you had to say that my phone shut off. I think what I like about this track is that sonically, I don't like this track very much. Like, there's almost like a weird grating nature to this, but I think artistically that's intentional. There's like a synth, and I think, is it weird that it's like delightful? It gave me a headache. Like, I got a headache a little bit listening to it. Maybe my headphones were just too loud, but I was just like, you know what? At this point, you just kind of have to roll with it, and that I appreciate it.
This is such a good headphones record too. The way everything's panned.
Oh my god!
And sometimes they have like the bug samples, or like riding the quads, and it goes like from left to right ears and stuff. And
God, Elucid's singing too on here just feels like so like I love how it like it's not like very polished up or anything like that either. Like he's just kind of like singing his heart out for what he's feeling, and just it's
like so vulnerable,
and
but
painful. Like oh my gosh, but in a good way. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
I'm not dissing this track at all. I'm telling like I like the fact that it was almost kind of grating to listen to, and how because of that it's like almost a happy ending, but like not really.
Yeah.
Just something about that is just so like
real.
So real, and just I feel it just has so much like artistic integrity that I can really appreciate.
Yeah, it's like the perfect closer.
Yeah.
It really brings everything home. But that'll bring us to our final thoughts. So, David, what did you think of Haram by Armand Hammer?
I mean, this is not fair because I chose these records. So I'm so biased. I love this record so much.
Yeah. That's totally fine, man.
Yeah, no, I love this record so much since the first day that I heard it. I can understand if I'm saying objectively, I could see how the wordy nature of it can be off-putting to some listeners, and I can see how some of the instrumentals being very like a lot of the music is very abstract and experimental, and it pushes kind of the limits, and I could see why people might not like this, but I love it. And I don't care what you think.
That's the way to be.
But no, I love this record so much. I think it's brilliant. Them working with The Alchemist was so exciting for me as a fan, just kind of cheering on, parasitical relationship. Like I don't personally had conversation, but like I don't know them or whatever, but it's so fun to watch as a fan and just be like, hey, it's really cool that you guys are doing something and it's getting a lot of attention and whatever, and to just work with somebody that's so talented and they're so talented. And yeah, again, it's not necessarily my favorite Armand Hammer project. It's not my favorite of Woods or Elucid's project, but this record is so great, and it's a great example and intro to what both of them do.
Yeah.
I think it is the most accessible Armand Hammer record, even though it's not
not
very
quite
pleasant and accessible to everyone, but it's definitely the most like commercially. This is the closest to what people think. Like if you listen to some of their other stuff, if you listen to like their newer record, like We Buy Diabetics Test Strips, it's not friendly at all, and that record is also incredible in different ways. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this record.
Nice. If you had to give it like a rating, what would you give it? Either letter grade out of 10.
Personal rating, like 9 out of 10.
Nice,
for sure.
Solid rating. Matt, what did you think of Haram?
I very much like this record. Honestly, it was. I mean, I don't want to say like a delightful listen, like sonically, but it definitely was like a very like informative, I'd say influential too. Like it highlighted a lot of
like issues,
like real world issues, especially like with poverty and stuff being one of the central themes. And like, I feel like a really brilliant way that, like you said, was very like accessible for them, but also like not entirely as accessible. I think having such an imaginative producer as The Alchemist was such a good idea of like highlighting some of the really like bold lyrical choices on this record in a way that definitely didn't undersell or oversell anything they were saying. I think all the features on here are like strong for what they have to offer. To like everybody really just knew what to do on each track that they were put on, especially like Kayana's backing vocals. Like that shit was really, really cool. I had never checked out Elucid before, so I think I'm gonna have to listen to more of his stuff. I'd listened to Maps by Billy Woods, and then like a couple of his like tracks here and there. I've listened to a little bit of Diabetic Test Strips, not like the full thing, but I think I really have to check out like their duo and like their solo stuff, because I really like both their lyrics, the poetic nature of like Elucid, and then like Billy Woods just being like so like
descriptive and vivid,
just like destructive sometimes in his imagery. Like he really just knows how to go the fuck off lyrically, and I really, really like his style, both like writing and rapping. Yeah, no, I very much enjoyed listening to this album. I don't know if I would listen to it all the time, because it might make life a little bit depressing. But I think it was a very good project, and I understand why the group has like a cult following and why this album seems to have a cult following from what I could follow like on Reddit. So I would give this like definitely high B, and then like almost a 9. I'd probably say like an 8.8, 8.7.
Nice.
No, it was an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
I really want to check out more of their stuff. So thank you for bringing it on.
Mm-hmm. I'll piggyback off of that because I really like the Lucid on this album.
Piggyback, literally.
Yeah.
We bring it all back.
It all ties together.
And that's why I'm here.
They really are the Chicharrones. But I think going in, I was expecting to like Billy Wood's contributions more because I was familiar with Maps in 2023. But I think like Lucid actually kind of stole the show for me. I really enjoyed like his contributions to the album more. So I also needed to like go into his solo work. But this was like a very great experience to listen to front to back. Both rappers complement each other wonderfully with their equally unique flow styles and their masterful control of rhythm. And they just like bounce off each other really well. The production is like immaculate on here.
Yeah.
Like The Alchemist is a genius, as you were saying.
And the post-production too. Like the little thing, the clipping and the underwater or whatever. Just like
it's great.
Little tiny baby details. It's
but like amplifies like a track like so much more. Like just like the reversing of the beat on Peppertree or like the flies going through on Roaches Don't Fly. Like that's just like so little, but it adds so much to just like bolster that track even more. I think much like you, Matt, I don't think I could listen to this all the time because I listened to this album a lot because I was having trouble remembering what certain samples sounded like. But I still like overall enjoyed it quite a bit. The features were great. Just the overall theme and concept is very important to discuss, and I liked hearing their perspective on it. So I think I'd overall give this a B+. I very much liked it. But this show, we have 2 albums we got to talk about.
That is very true.
So let's hop into this next one, Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers. Why did you choose this album specifically?
Well, I knew the theme of the show and trying to connect it. I
Yeah.
feel like there's a lot to talk about in the connection of these 2 records. Also, again, just a big fan.
Yeah.
Being a person I really enjoy lyricism in music and storytelling, and Phoebe Bridgers is also a top tier lyricist and storyteller.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And this record is great. It came out very similar times. I feel like there's a lot of similarities to it, so I picked it for that reason, but also big fan of Phoebe Bridgers.
Nice. Without further ado, we'll get into a little bit of history. This album was released June 18th, 2020 on Dead Oceans Records, and is the sophomore album of beloved indie singer-songwriter Phoebe Bridgers. She got her start around 2014, being a member of bands like Sloppy Jane, while also performing solo, before eventually releasing her debut album in 2017, which received major critical acclaim. Now she's one of the most prominent figures in the indie game, as well as one of the most beloved female artists out there right now. And this album, I can definitely see why she's so influential and beloved.
Oh, without a doubt. I love just like I love the contrast of like the sometimes really peaceful instrumentals with like the super grim nature
Depressing.
of the lyrics.
Oh my God, dude.
Like even just we'll talk about them, but the first 2 tracks, just like having something so ominous and then flipping to something sonically that sounds just
so
the
pleasant.
complete opposite.
Yeah, dude.
She really knows what she's doing as a songwriter. And I think, I don't want to spoil too much, but I think musically, I really, really like this album a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of amazing musical moments. I'm quite fond of track 3.
Yeah, track 3's hard to beat. But let's hop right into it. We have a DVD menu, which is, it does sum up the track perfectly. That is what she was going for. Yeah. Just kind of like a little intro instrumental to kind of like lead you into like the overall like tone of the sound that you're going to be hearing on this album. It's like a bit ominous with like the kind of like reversed minor strings that kind of like appear throughout.
Yeah,
which
the
is really
strings
cool.
are so good in the song. Yeah.
It almost sounds like music from like a video game title screen. Like I got like Last of Us
DVD
vibes.
titles.
Yeah. So it works out.
Hey, DVDs in the extras, like bonus features menu, some of them had games.
They do. They had demos.
The
Yeah.
Shrek one, that one has a lot to offer, let me tell you.
The karaoke. Yo, honestly, can we just talk about Shrek for
We could.
Can we do a bonus?
The Holy
Shrek
Trinity,
episode?
Armand Hammer,
Yeah,
Phoebe Bridgers, Shrek.
On the family album DVD, we will have the Shrek
Karaoke.
karaoke.
Yo,
Yeah. It's just a video of us singing the Shrek.
I'm a believer.
Living La Vida Loca.
But
Oh,
yeah, I
man.
think this does a great. The name infers that this is going to be a concept record, right?
Yeah.
That, and I think that's really important to set you up, because like it does be like, when you listen to this song, kind of remember, because this is going to get brought up 5 songs from now and whatever. And I love that, how just naming it that infers that. I love, yeah, again, the strings, the transition into the next song. It's a really great opener.
Yeah.
I feel like it also just really embodies how the record looks. Like I always look for, does like the music match like the album cover? And this really does match the album cover.
Yeah, you could see like, bonus features, like chapters, like with that red and her standing in the,
They do like a thing where like it's like a video, so you see her like walking across the field.
Oh,
Yeah.
And she's in a skeleton thing, just walking or whatever. It just pops it. Play, chapters, director commentary.
It being a concept album, I love how like it's so misleading to what like the next track offers you sonically. Because I mean, honestly, this doesn't sound like a lot else on this album. I feel like there are string moments, but there are moments that don't sound as like dissonant and like minor as this opening track. But dare I say, like even just like really beautiful. Like there's a I forget what track it is, but there's a moment on here where it's like really nice strings. Almost like cinematic, but
Yeah. I
yeah,
think I know which one you're talking about.
I like this track a lot. I think it very much does at least let you know like you're not in for just like a regular like run of the mill series of tracks. Like you're in for something heavy, something
Punishing, if you will.
one might say.
But we got nothing else. We can move on to Garden Song, which I believe was the first single for this album. I really like the lyricism on this track, like a lot of like almost like absurdist imagery, because it's based off a nightmare, I believe, which is really cool. And I like how it's like primarily made of like acoustic guitar with like very, very subtle like digital effects that like pop in like low in the mix.
Yeah, the production on this song is really great. Again, we could maybe talk about this at the end or whatever, but just briefly bringing up the way that there is a lot of like lo-fi elements in the very bottom, but then there's these really rich textures put on top of these really muddy lo-fi sounds, and just the balance of this crazy contrast of like these really high quality, like dynamic things and this really muddy, gross
like foundation.
And again, her lyricism is so incredible. I love when for all intensive purposes, I guess maybe you could argue that this is a pop record, and for being a pop record, like doing the hooks, having the same melody but changing the words is so great. Like I love that. And like giving different, context to that and stuff. And again, like also comparing, again, we could talk more about comparing later, but briefly, like the limiter and reverb when she hits like the phrase like a tidal wave, and it, the reverb or whatever, brings up this imagery of water and stuff like that. I also really love when she hits the line in the second verse that's like, her doctor put her hands over my liver. She told me my resentment is getting smaller. Like that's such a great use of imagery and storytelling, and just like, personifying this
feeling,
idea. Like, you hold the resentment in your body, and her doctor could feel it literally. Like it's such a great storytelling and writing exercise.
Yeah, for real. I love when artists will have like a hook, but it's only melodic and not lyrical too.
Yeah.
It's just a very nice, like, it really just makes the song feel super like streamlined and like not like stopping, just like full of momentum. The contrast of like the instrumental from the lyrics is just so fun. I really like just the overall part in the chorus where she's just like, everything's growing in our garden. You don't have to know that it's haunted. Like, that really just like those few words, I feel like just kind of like speak volumes to just like the psyche that this album tries to like put the listener in.
Yeah.
Or I guess the psyche that they're trying to portray to the listener that the singer
is going through. Yeah.
And I don't think they want you to feel this way.
I don't know, maybe she does, right?
It's called Punisher for a reason.
She's gonna come out of the comic book with a machine gun and stuff.
Got nothing else? Can move on to probably like the biggest track from this album, Kyoto.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The biggest track on this album. Yeah.
It's also probably this is my introduction to Phoebe Bridgers. It's probably my favorite track on the album, just for simply how pleasant it sounds. So those lyrics, they get you. They sneak up on you.
They really, really do.
I really like how like retro the song is, almost having like a bit of like an indie like influence with like those like chime keys.
It is very like 1996.
Yeah.
Like it's very like that like college rock.
Yeah.
Like
the slacker rock kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I love the horns. They're so good on the chorus. It's so much like rich texture. The bass line also is like so good, just how like it chugs along, and the little guitar licks that appear in both channels is really cool too. And I just really like how the instrumental juxtaposes the lyrics. Like the one that stood out to me was, "I wanted to see the world through your eyes until it happened, and then I changed my mind." Fuck, dude. Ouch.
Heavy as shit. Oh my.
It is like, you know, we think of like diss songs in terms of like rappers or in other genres. Maybe we talk about like, you know, ex-lovers or whatever, but to write a diss song about
on your dad.
And this is a brutal diss song about her dad. Like, but it's still like empathetic in some ways, but it is like, I don't know. It's it's funny. Yeah, people don't talk about like, you know, indie folk pop songs being
diss tracks,
songs, but
this is a great example of that.
Very great example. I love the drums when she sings "I'm gonna kill you and I don't forgive you," like in the chorus. Like, oh my god, just the bum 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 bum.
Dude, the accented pattern so good. The 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Oh yeah. It's so like simple, but it's so like strong.
Yeah,
and, like powerful.
It's like anthemic almost.
For real.
Yeah, the line. Yeah, I want to kill you if you don't beat me to it. It's like,
right?
Yeah, it's like what?
Jesus.
Yeah. And there was another line that was like, remember getting the truck fixed, you let us drive it, 25 felt like flying. Like just this reminiscent, again, this like, I don't know, like you can feel the imagery of it. Like it's very like visual storytelling. Again, feels very novel-esque, or if that's a word. If not, we're inventing it.
We're coining it. Scum jazz, novelesque.
That's the name of our album.
Yeah, there we go.
Novel-esque scum jazz.
That sounds like the Tyler, the Creator record. No, I apologize to my 11th grade English teacher for fucking all this term stuff or whatever.
Going back to like the empathetic nature of like her dad, I think it's cool because you kind of like hear the conflict in her, because like she is like really kind of going in, but there's like positive memories like attached to him too. Yeah. It's like a really just like hard song for her to like express, but it's necessary to like get out all that frustration.
Yeah.
Not sonically, but the themes of this very much remind me of the song "Masterpiece" by Big Thief. Because honestly, like just there is like that resentment, but because they're like a family like figure in your life, you like want to hate them, but like not really. You still kind of love them, but you also like you really do feel that conflict, I feel like, in the lyrics.
And I love that, like, I don't know what the story or reasoning why this is, but like if you listen to her other record or whatever, her like really huge song that really pushed her into the mainstream is called Motion Sickness. It's also kind of one of the very few upbeat songs on that record. It kind of is in a similar place where it's right kind of like in the beginning, very early. And it's just interesting how these like meet this same like flow of things, and how she's like matching these like, you know, tones. The first song on that record is very like moody and feels like a whatever, and then we get into the
poppy hit.
I don't know if that was like maybe like a more like record label thing, or if it was like her being like, I think it'd be really cool if I matched the same like rhythms of the other record or whatever. But I love it. I don't know whether it was malicious to make not malicious, but like a more commercial decision or an artistic decision. Either way, I love it.
Yeah, cool parallels regardless.
For real.
Next up, we have the title track, Punisher. I think it definitely earns the title of title track. It's about Elliott Smith. And I really like the concept of the song where like a Punisher is like referring to a socially unaware fan that like doesn't really respect the artist as much as they think they do. It's very cool.
And the way that she's like accusing herself of being that is an interesting take.
Like if he were like still alive, like she would be that way. It's very like interesting dynamic.
And I also love that I feel like this isn't not necessarily talked about as much, but like it's so obvious. Like, I know, like, I write music and stuff, like, but I love music as well.
Yeah.
And like people don't think about, oh, my favorite artist is also a huge
exactly.
fanboy of whatever thing. Like, you always feel so embarrassed to be like I don't really want to admit that I'm a huge fan of this thing because I'm also an artist and but like for her to like address that and be like, yeah, like I write music and maybe you think of me in this way, but I also like I love this, and and also the struggles of also like I can relate very heavy of like trying not to fall into the rhythms of your favorite writer and being like, I'm kind of scared. I'm like copying my favorite thing. Like I don't, cause I love it so much and it's so ingrained in my head and stuff like that, and just the thing, like going into that and saying like the copycat killer, with a chemical cut, like talking about dyeing her hair and copying him and falling into this like thing and trying not to steal his thing. And also this song does kind of sound like an Elliott Smith song. Like the meta nature of that is brilliant / not brilliant.
Intentionally not brilliant.
It's like telling somebody you're gonna stab them and then can't be mad at me, I told you I was gonna stab you. Like, what I mean?
He makes a valid point, honestly, now that I think about it.
I love that.
I really love how this track sounds, to be honest with you.
Oh, totally.
It's just the piano like holding down the melody and the rhythm for the most part. I also think it's cool how it's like a rather bombastic track to this like super isolating and lost vibe in the lyrics. I can't tell if the strings are like synth strings or real strings or both, but they sound great.
I think I would assume they're real strings.
No, I'm not sure.
In the description.
Case in point, they sound.
Phoebe Bridgers. Comment below.
Yeah, we know you're listening.
Question of the week only for Phoebe Bridgers. If you're not Phoebe Bridgers, please do not respond.
We could easily research this ourselves, but we know you're listening.
Or Elliott Smith's ghost.
Either or will suffice.
In the comments.
Yeah, I like how much pain you can feel in the track, yet also how both elegant and bombastic the vibe is.
Yeah.
Which is a weird combination of words, but
she makes it work.
She makes it work. Or I just have a limited vocabulary.
He would also like to apologize
to my 11th grade teacher.
It's okay. We're learning new words today to make up for that, like novelesque.
I wonder if that is a real word or not.
It'll be in the description if it is.
Phoebe Bridgers, please let us.
She would know more than anyone.
Please educate us on if this is a real word or not.
Next up, we have another favorite of mine. We have Halloween. Like, this track is brutal. Like, my God, just like the overall theme. Just like, Halloween is a day where you can be anything, so let's pretend to be happy. Like, fucking Christ, dude. Like, ouch. Like the music is like super minimal, having like slight strumming guitars in both channels with like these very subtle droning synths that like kind of slowly rise over time. And I also really like at the very end they have I don't remember his name, but it's like
Connor Oberst, Bright Eyes.
Yeah, having him like kind of sing at the very end as if they're like having this conversation is very cool.
I love when indie artists have like really intimate like musical elements, but like having guitars like really close in like your audio periphery on the left and right channel. But then like there's some rather spacious production techniques that are sort of like they almost feel like they're in front of you.
Oh yeah, the dynamics are so good in this song.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The piano is so gentle on this track, which I love. I feel like with this track, you almost feel like submerged in like just dread and misery, which is awesome.
It's the anxiety, it's the depression that and like
that good depression.
You had depression before, but have you tried good depression?
Man, we're rattling off a lot of these new products we're giving our audience.
Yeah, check out our merch site.
We're also sponsored by the good depression lobbyists.
Yeah, we'll be giving you that good depression and good anxiety along
good
with
paranoia.
a free copy of our Scum Jazz CD.
Yeah, let us know what you think. We're handing out our demos.
Use discount code Family App. Check out
for a free mini vial of good paranoia.
Oh man, but I do very much like this track. This one is for real a highlight for me, I feel like.
I love it.
One more thing, I almost missed it. I love the thuds that hold down the rhythm toward the middle and that continue toward the rest of the track. Just really cool. I like the layers.
Next up, we have Chinese Satellite. I think this might be the track you're talking about with the strings.
Yes,
that sounds very cinematic.
I believe so.
Yeah, just having like almost it has like a theatrical nature to it, where like during the choruses, like everything drops out, and then Phoebe is like backed by like these very lush strings that just like keep ascending.
Yeah.
It's a very nice moment.
This is such a huge highlight for me on this record. I think the songwriting is really incredible. On a personal level, it's something that I very much relate to and have felt, and just this crazy exploration into grief and like pleading to this God that you're not really sure if you believe in, and this exploration into people finding religion in moments of despair, and and it's just so crazy. And just these like phrases like that, like I've experienced a lot of grief in my life and stuff, and I've lost people close to me, and just the way that she describes it is so real. And like these things of like she uses drowning out the morning birds with the same 3 songs over and over. I wish I wrote it, but I didn't, so I learned the words, and I hum along until the feeling's gone forever. Is so beautiful. And just these things, like when you're in these moments of like grief and stuff, like listening to the same thing brings comfort and stability, predictability that calms you down in this depression. And then this idea of like you relating to this thing. Like I really love sad music in times when I'm sad. And I know some people that's very hard for them to listen to, but a lot of times it's for reasons like this line where like this feels like exactly what I'm going through. I'm humming along to this until it feels like it disappears. And just like that's such a beautiful, beautiful line. And then using the metaphor of wishing on a satellite because she can't find a shooting star.
Dude.
Like doing all this thing like, oh, like I'm going to drive out to the country and, there's no light pollution from the city and I'm going to find a shooting star and I'm going to pray that it's all going to be okay or whatever and make this wish. And then it never happens. So you have to
settle
like on a satellite. It's such a crazy, like heavy thing. And then, when she hits that line, like, I want to believe, instead I look to the sky and I feel nothing. I hate to be alone. I want to be wrong. Like just saying like, I hope that an afterlife and a God exists. And I hope that when I die, I can see you. She brings that up later too. Like, I hope that when I die, I can see this person that I loved again. But I don't know if I do. And I hope that I'm wrong. It's so like, it's giving me chills now talking about it. Like, this is definitely a huge, huge, huge highlight for me. Like, and again, like going back to these lines of like, I would stand on the corner embarrassed with the picket sign if it meant I would see you when I die. Like saying like, I don't care if it's embarrassed. I don't care. Like I would do all the things I would be like, yes, Jesus is real. I would stand on the corner and do all these like things that I would join in if, it meant that I could see you again. And that's so like, woo, like,
it's potent.
Gosh. I was like, whew.
Like, damn.
Just like feeling so adrift in your sea of grief and just looking out for any kind of landmass as you're trying to just reach to something. Like this track just does such a good job. I love that line. Like all the stars are out tonight, so I'll be wishing on. Oh my gosh, that really hit hard for me too. I would also agree. This is definitely I would say. I think there's like 5 songs I wrote down at the end that like I pointed as my favorites. I think this one is either like my first or second favorite. Like it's just sonically it sounds great, and just the lyrics are just so hard hitting but real. Yeah, just the skepticism of like, is anything even out there? But like, God, I want to be wrong. Like you said, like, oh my gosh, it's remarkable, and I love how it kind of the drums to me also. If we're talking about it like sonically. I feel like they're really reminiscent of a lot of like 2000s rock bands. Okay. Which is kind of fun. Like, I don't really know like what area of rock, maybe like the alt scene or like beach alt. I don't know how else to describe it, but like there is something like really nostalgic about it, which I also kind of feel like ties in with the song too. But it has a great blend of like folk and like warmth.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else to describe it.
And going off that, like talking instrumentally, the way that it ends and how it swells like with all this hope, and then at the last second it falls apart. Like you're like, I want to believe in this thing, and then it all
reality
falls, and it just becomes a met, and it just falls apart in the last like 2 beats. It just like it's just like, oh nope,
satellite didn't cut it.
Yeah, and like that's such a interesting musical way to feel that out, or whatever.
Like tie into that concept. Next up we have Moon Song. This one is also really brutal. Just kind of like feeling like a doormat, like giving up everything about yourself for a person because you want them to love you back the way that you love them. Like the metaphor of like the dog holding like a dead bird, but like the owner like doesn't want it. Like that's really brutal. And that, I think it comes back later too, which is really cool. I like the switch to like 6/8 too. It's a nice kind of like change up of the overall feeling of the album. And I love it just how like muted the drum sound and how like the strings like carry such emotional weight on this track. This one's really cool.
I feel like, again, like lyrically we don't get like, obviously like there's like some big examples, but for the most part when we talk about like infidelity and adultery and stuff, it's usually from the person like either cheating or being cheated on. And oftentimes we don't hear the perspective of the other person involved in this situation. And I thought that was such a interesting perspective, and just her like desperation and just the raw honesty, and going into these themes, tying back to the first record that we talked about, like of these things that we don't really want to talk about, and the things that are like looked at as quote unquote bad or whatever, and like looking at the humanity in it, and there's still like all this weight to it and things like that. I think was such a interesting thing to write a song about. I think she does it incredibly well.
Oh, totally.
And like you were saying, that metaphor of like the hunting dog and stuff. And then when he does, I forget, I didn't write down the line, but the line at the end where he's like, looking at it and being like, what have I done? Like seeing that she's like here trying to, what can I do to make it work? What can I do to make it work? And he's like looking at her and he's like, oh, like I fucked up. Like, I this is a great song.
I really like how quiet and like washed out these little like ride cymbal hits sound. Like something about that really, again, just kind of adds to like the super, I don't know, just like almost jaded feel. I feel like that this song kind of tries to bring on.
Jaded.
I mean, this is a very, very like gutting song again. And you guys had all the best points. So I'm not gonna lie. But I will say, I do like, it sounds like there's like a Wurlitzer or like E-piano of some kind that like kind of pops up. So I like that. It's pretty cool.
I also love in the lyricism, I love when artists like use little personal anecdotes to give a greater thing. And there's like little fun, again, it's weird using the word fun in such dark art, but there's these little fun, like little things like talking about like we hate Tears in Heaven, but it's sad that his baby died. Like talking about arguing about music and arguing about like whether John Lennon was a good person, and just like these little like quips and little anecdotes of their relationship. And it's just a very like singular individual thing. Like, we hate the song Tears in Heaven, but I feel bad that his baby died. Like, it's
we fight about John Lennon until I cry.
I went to bed. I was like, But just like these little arguments things, but also using the song Tears in Heaven to use this greater thing about like whatever. It's like, it's great like songwriting technique, and she does it so well.
Totally. Next up we have Savior Complex. We have the 6/8 feel back again, and I really like the subtle percussion on this track. Really kind of, it holds things down without being like too distracting. And it's, you get what you pay for on this track. It's about just having a savior complex. And I feel like she portrays that very well. And I really like the metaphor, like the show me yours, I'll show you mine, but just like pain and grief. It's like you're not the only one going through something.
And it's also, that line's cool too, because it's like kind of presenting it like it's not a competition. You're not the only one going through shit. Like, let's just share it. be here,
Exactly.
and I'll save you, which is an unfortunate mindset to have. But at the same time, like the sentiment is, I think, understood. This is the track where I felt like the strings are just really beautiful.
Oh yeah, the
here.
strings
Totally.
are great in this for sure.
Like, oh my God, like this, it almost has like slight orchestral motifs, I feel like, on here. Like very cinematic. Like I could see a vivid picture.
Yeah.
And where the strings come in too, there's this little like soft, it's not like a Japanese game show, but there's like this gong thing that's like, and it's like the strings come in, and I was just like, woo. Like, yeah, that's such a great moment.
I really like this track lyrically. This is another one of my favorites, I think.
I also really like how there's like an instrumental break that just gives the synths and the strings like a moment to shine together. I agree. I think this one's just very solid all around. Next up, we have another favorite of mine. We have ICU, kind of bringing up the energy a little bit. This is about her previous drummer, who she's in a relationship with.
Yeah. There's a bunch of that on the first record.
Gotcha.
A bunch of it.
Parallels, I see.
Yeah.
I love the theme of this track. Again, it kind of going back to Kyoto. It's like the conflict of like you're not together anymore, but there's still things like you miss about this person, but there are things that you absolutely despise, like this person's mom.
Oh my
that
God.
lyric is so funny.
Wrote down the whole thing in my notes.
It's so good. I loved that. I just love like how like heavier it feels, like the electric guitars and like that building drum beat in the intro is great.
Yeah.
And yet verse 2 just goes so hard. I love that verse.
Yeah, this is the next closest thing this record gets to an upbeat, like bouncy song.
Exactly.
It's the next closest that we ever get, which is so interesting. I also love the name, labeling it ICU with the letters, and then talking about I see you, like I see you in this relationship. I see exactly who you are. You see who I am. And then relating that to like the relationship being in danger and almost dying and being in an ICU in the hospital. And the play on words in that is like, it's simple and easy, but so
effective.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And like the way that she does it is so great. And so many great lines. And like, I've been playing dead my whole life. And I got this feeling whenever I feel good, it'll be the last time. Is like,
damn.
So, like, call my therapist for an emergency meeting real fast. I'll be like, are you available right now, please? And then, the thing, and again, about talking about seeing one another. And then you're a work of art. I'm standing too close because I can see the brushstrokes. Like talking about how this thing is so beautiful from afar, but when you get really close to it, it's like I can see how it was made, and I can see this thing and how it's imperfect or whatever. And it is like about her old drummer and stuff. And they hit that line, now I can't even get you to play the drums. And then for like the next measure, the drums drop back out. I was like, that was fun. But like I love little like, little things like that in the production or whatever. And I don't know, I on a personal level, to me, I can relate heavy on both sides. I've been on both sides of this story in my personal romantic relationships and stuff. And and it's just really real, the line, I don't know what I want until I fuck it up, is like so powerful, and the way she hits it, and you really believe it. Like, it's like, until I fuck, like she hits the curse word really hard, and you feel, and it's not like, she's cursing all the time where it's like you lose the she's using that word, she's using fuck on purpose to accent and make this a more powerful statement, and she does that so beautifully. And damn, have I not felt that sometimes in my life, where I'm just like, I messed something up because I wasn't sure what I wanted, and then just the afterwards of being like, damn, like what did I lose and whatever. And then again, being on the other side, I've also been on the other side of that, where like the other person, like things didn't work out because they didn't know what they wanted. And the song is so relatable to me, and the way that she describes it is so real and honest. It's not one dimensional. It's very like
nuanced.
It's not like I'm the good guy and you're the bad guy or whatever. It's
shades of gray.
We have a phrase on the family album about when artists say fuck not purposefully or like way too early in the album. It's called Premature Fuck. And I think it's great that she did not have one in this song.
This certainly is not a
album.
premature fuck.
No, we've had many a track that have been.
You can say we have many premature fucks, right, man?
In our lifetime, yes. Sonically, I love how this track sounds. It fucking rips, honestly. And I love how both on this record, how both of her most upbeat songs have just the most like bitter, brutal, crashing lyrics.
Totally.
She knows how to use her juxtaposition like so well. I love the delay on the drums on this one. It's like so cool. I described them as scrumptious. I just felt that everybody needed to know that. That lyric about hating the guy's mom is great. I audibly laughed when I heard that.
Yeah.
This might be honestly my favorite, like vocally on this record. Like she just really sings her heart out here.
I can see why.
Really hates this guy's mom.
She does hit that really hard. Like, that's another line that she hits. Like, I hate your mom. Was it? I didn't write that down.
It's crazy how like people don't know anything.
I hate when she opens her mouth.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many things you can say when you don't know what you're talking about.
That's it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that is such a good diss.
So good.
And the guitars are just sick as hell. Like, oh my gosh, just really good track. And now for something less serious. So I get like I really like the play with the title I See You and how it's really just like, oh, I see you. Unfortunately, me being a Cartoon Network junkie from the 2000s, Mad Magazine had a show, and it was, for lack of better terms. They did an Avatar, like James Cameron Avatar segment, and I guess there's like, I've never seen it, by the way. I've never seen Avatar. I don't know if that's controversial to say.
I've never seen it either.
I saw it once when I was like 9, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
There's a part where the famous guy from Avatar, Mr. Avatar himself, there's a part where Aang is dying and he is like, all right, I wasn't sure if that joke was going to hit.
Aang, that took me a
Sorry,
second.
my bad. I said it way too deadpan. But there's a part where the guy is like dying after he's like outside of like the Avatar capsule, but like his I forget what the race of like people are called in the movie, but he's like dying and he's like, I see you, and she's like, I see you too, and I guess it's like an impactful point in the movie. But he's like, I see you. She's like, I see you too. He goes, no, take me to the ICU. And unfortunately, that was the first thing that I thought of when this track came on. But unfortunately, it did not ruin the experience. The track was just so substantive that like genuinely it was,
even through Mad, you were able to appreciate it.
It overpowered my intrusive thoughts.
Well, actually, the drummer that she was in a relationship that she broke up with, that the song is about, is also the blue guy from Avatar. It's also the same.
Little coincidence.
Wow, that's crazy coincidence. Honestly.
Oh, that's awesome. Next up, we have the penultimate track, Graceland Too. This is probably my least favorite track on the album. I think it's solid for what it is. I like that we kind of get this like some boy genius contributions in here, which is really cool.
It does kind of feel like it would be more suited on that record.
Yeah.
It does feel a little out of place with the country. It's a very much a country thing, which I feel like a lot of the Boy Genius first EP had a lot of country sounds. And I don't know if this was like an outtake from that or vice versa or whatever combination, but I definitely see the parallels. Of that.
Like I like the instrumentation, like the banjo and like the fiddle, like in the intro is really cool. I do agree. I do think it sounds very out of place. And I think that like the theme is pretty cool, like caring for a self-destructive person and just like the struggles that come with that is important to talk about. Just like sonically, I don't really think it fits. Yeah,
and lyrically, it does give a moment of hope again.
Yeah,
you know, it is like not a like victory song, but it is a hopeful towards victory song. And then I love the way that she plays around with using the you versus she, whatever she wants, whatever you want, talking about herself in the third person versus the second person versus first person, and those dynamics and the different choruses and stuff is very interesting. But yeah, I just think I really like this song. It just feels like sonically, again, like there's no other moments where like country music really comes in, so it kind of feels weird.
There's no fiddle on Moon Song.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I feel like, I don't know. You know, it feels a little like out of place a little bit, but I do love this song, and I get why narratively it makes a lot of sense here. Yeah, on the record and in this specific place. But yeah, sonically it feels a little. It takes me out a little bit, you know, but I like it. I love it. And it just feels a little weird next to the other things.
Yeah, especially like where it is between those two tracks. Yeah.
I very much agree, honestly. Like I really like the fact that like where it's placed actually. I also kind of like how there's a bit of a relief compared to like what you're hearing previously, even if it doesn't like sound exactly like what this record has like shown us so far. Yeah, no, I think like the having the folksy sort of sound to it, especially when like it's called Graceland Too. It almost kind of it could be like a nod to like Paul Simon, a very folksy artist. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm very glad it's on the album actually, and I like where it's placed.
Well, I think the reference to like Elvis and stuff, I think is where
in Nashville, right?
Yeah.
That
Graceland, Tennessee. There we go. There we go.
That makes a lot more sense. Not Graceland, Paul Simon.
I mean, that's where my mind went immediately. But
I think doesn't she mention Elvis in the song?
Yeah,
she does. Now that you bring it up, I do remember.
So it is a reference to Elvis. We're just stupid.
Or maybe Elvis is just stupid.
And alive.
Whoa.
Nah.
You heard it here for breaking news. Oh, how you doing, folks?
It's Elvis. Whoa.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Please welcome Elvis.
Oh, thank you very much. I wish I could do a better Elvis impression. I apologize.
I feel like if I did, it would devolve into like Rodney Dangerfield. So I'm not gonna try.
I'll tell you. That's crazy.
Oh man. Well, home stretch. We're at the very end with I know the end. A very, very fitting finale that just sounds like a full like composition in of itself. Just the way that it builds and the way that it ends is so satisfying. It does sound very apocalyptic. I love how when it picks up and like everyone like coming together with like those layered like choral harmonies is really nice. And then like the very, very end with like her like screaming but like no voice coming out.
Yeah.
Such a great moment.
Yeah.
I also the longest track on this record, right? If I'm not mistaken.
By far. By like double, maybe triple. It's like the only one that's over 3 minutes.
Yeah, no, I think it uses up all of its minutes so well.
Totally.
Especially, it just feels like a good conclusion to everything.
Mm-hmm. Like this very cathartic moment.
Yeah. I love like lyrically how she brings in all of the record.
Yeah.
Again, this being like a theme record or whatever you want to call it, concept record or whatever, just the references to everything, talking about the waves and the water, and then talking about arguments, and then bringing back up the bird and the teeth, talking about running away, like this idea of what is home, singing country music in the car, the same as the last song, Graceland Too, bringing up these ideas of haunted house and ghosts like Halloween, and talking about creationism like in
Chinese satellite
and whatever. Just like so many references to the rest of the album is so great. There's so many great lyrical moments on this. One that hugely stands out to me is out in the park, we watch the sunset, talking on a rusty swing set, and then later, a couple lines later, she goes, I'm always pushing you away from me, but you come back like gravity. Like that play on words of talking about this push and pull relationship kind of thing, but also like the swings, and when you come back to me, like I'm pushing you away like in this relationship, but we're talking on the swings and I'm pushing you and you come back. Like it's really fun and whatever. And the beat switch and going into the second half of the song is so powerful, and the build up, and it gives all this tension, and then over the coast, everyone's convinced it's a government drone or an alien spaceship. Either way, we're not alone. Like it's such a good idea of what, again, like trying to find your place in this world and you know, this idea of this, and you know, passing this billboard, the end is near. I look away and I don't see it, you know, but the end is here. You know, I also love, like, I don't know if you guys like listen to like Bright Eyes a lot or whatever, but they have a very similar type. It's not the same, but they have a similar like chaos ending or whatever to their really big album called It's Wide Awake It's Morning. The last song on that is called Road to Joy and has this big, really loud horn centric kind of screaming ending. And it's also cool referencing back to playing off your influences of the Punisher on the song Punisher, and then kind of like doing that in this in a reference to Bright Eyes is so great. The heaviness at the end where, you know, they're just repeating the end is near and it starts going into the instrumental passages. This one drum part where it slows down and at like half times or whatever, it's like do do ga ga da da ga ga da da whatever. I'm just
so
like,
nice.
So hard hitting.
I
and
love
there's
it.
like no drums on this record. Like it's very like there's like 3 songs with drums, and then where that hit like the ga ga da, like I'm like woo, like I'm here.
And like the guitars come in, they're just fucking shredding along. So good.
And just the screaming, and then like how you brought up how it just dissolves and you hear her in the studio trying to do it, and then the like laughter, and you break the kayfabe of it and the illusion where she's in the thing and she's running out of breath and laughing how ridiculous it kind of is, and this really real moment bringing you back into reality. It almost feels like the credits scene, like you know, it feels like a nod to it being a movie, and it feels like
peeling
you know,
the curtain back.
Sometimes when they have like those big blockbuster movies, even like cartoons and stuff, you know how sometimes they roll the credits and they'll have some of the voice actors like in the corner of the screen or whatever. It like kind of like feels like
a
that.
blooper.
Like bloopers and whatever. And I don't know. I don't know if that was the artistic intention.
I think it's a good observation, though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I didn't think of it like that.
I think what I really like about this track is that much like ICU, it really just like absolutely rips from start to finish. But then also it really just shows how versatile of like a songwriter Phoebe Bridgers like is, and how like I think people constantly are like, oh man, like women songwriters, they can't be like epic with their fucking songwriting. But it's like, no, she'll fucking prove you wrong and then some. Honestly, all 3 members of Boy Genius, like they have great fucking music, some of which are like soft, but then others like absolutely fuck all the way down. Like it's incredible. This definitely just really feels like everything comes to fruition from what we've heard previously. And I'm really fond of this closer. Yeah, for sure.
It very much encapsulates what the album's all about, with a very like just cathartic like ending. I love it.
Yeah,
me too.
That'll bring us to the end. So, David, what do you think?
The end is near.
It is near. It is now even.
The podcast is also near.
That is true.
Again, if we're doing numbers, probably a 9 for me personally. I love this record. I think it's incredible. I think her songwriting is so great. I love the imagery of it. The production, again, with the post-production is so great. Yeah. There's such a heavy mood and theme, and it's very singular. It's a very one piece again. Like, it means a lot to me lyrically, and I think she's really incredible, and I really enjoy it.
See why, Matt?
I very much see why this record means a lot to you, because honestly, this record was such a pleasantry to listen to, from its music to its lyrics. Oh my god. And her vocal performance, like not ever faltering or feeling like it's not matching up to par, or like the music like being too out of her league to like sing along to. She owns every part of the track, every part of the album, excuse me. She uses up like the entire runtime so well. I love like all the uncredited features here. I have a frog in my throat. Excuse me.
Literally.
Yeah, there are frogs. There are tadpoles
clamoring out of his mouth right now.
It's horrendous to watch.
It's part of the 7th
I'm so sorry I have to see this, David. Like this is embarrassing.
Don't apologize to me. Apologize to Elvis.
Yeah, we're one and the same.
We usually cut these moments out of the podcast. Yeah, no, I really just love the way this album presents itself. Like you said, almost feeling like a movie, like DVD menu from start to finish with the end credits. My favorite tracks on here, without a doubt, have to be Halloween, Chinese Satellite, Savior Complex, ICU, and I'd probably say Kyoto. Kyoto is a very banging track, and like she knows what she's doing, like so much, and it shows. And I really want to continue to listen to her stuff because I kind of know her music from like a cursory glance. Like this is the first like full deep like dive into a record of hers that like I've ever decided to go on. I love Lucy Dacus.
Yeah.
Historian honestly might be one of my favorite albums right now. Just, oh my God. But I'm very happy that I'm exploring the other members of Boy Genius because I've listened to their stuff together. Also very good. This is very intriguing for me to like explore her more as an artist because this is really, really cool. Hopefully, though, after I listen to all of her music, I'm not treating her like she would treat Elliott Smith.
Yes.
You know? But I worry her music might be too good. Like, no, but in all seriousness, I would definitely, I think honestly, I would give this like a low A.
Nice.
Because it's deserving. AJ and I, we usually do like a season 3 ranking at the end, or just a season ranking.
Yeah.
At the end of each season, and this is definitely going to be. I don't want to spoil it, but this will definitely be like on the upper echelon of the albums. I think it's just very well done. So I would give this like a low A. And
right next to Metal Machine music, right?
Yeah, right next to Lou Reed's Metal Machine music. No, I would give this definitely like a low A, and then probably I'd go as far as saying 9 too. I really, really enjoyed this.
Nice. Good stuff, man. This album is really sad, but it is in the best way possible. It really does give you that good depression.
Use discount code family.
Yeah,
album.
so we still have that going. Let's have that promo going. She's excellent at like painting a picture in like the most melancholic, depressing way. Like her imagery is impressively clear, and the subjects she tackles are just very heartbreaking and relatable. It's hard for your soul not to get crushed throughout like the entirety of Halloween, Savior Complex, and Moonsong. Her lyricism is like very direct and very brutal, and like it always has like an emotional gut punch at like any point. Her vocals add like are very intimate, which adds to the overall tone of this album. Feeling like a trauma dump or like a therapy session. That sees all kind of like emotions just being purged. Instrumentally, this album isn't really my cup of tea. It's very slow and doesn't have like a lot of instrumental variety, but that's just like a me thing. I'm not like too big on singer-songwriter, like folksy stuff. But like what is there is done very well. Like the ever-present string section is a highlight that complements the emotions of each track wonderfully. But the music that's like primarily like acoustic guitar and just vocals isn't really my favorite. Though the lyricism does a lot of like the heavy lifting on those tracks for me. So while it isn't like my go-to for like the type of music I seek out, it's very well crafted and conveys its themes and concepts in a brutal, beautiful way. So I was initially going to give this a B, but just like after this discussion, I'm going to give it a B plus because I did like really enjoy discussing this more. Yeah.
She got the extra credit points.
Exactly.
I think also definitely your insights into a lot of the lyricism.
Yeah.
Like, I really loved a lot of what you had to say about this album and the other album for sure. Yeah. Just as a lyricist yourself, I think you were able to really see a lot of the intricacies both in like cadence, but also like in double entendre and like all this other stuff. So thank you so much for being on.
You're a great guest.
For real.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I love both of these records so much. I think they have so much in common, even though, you know, one's a rap record and one's a folky pop record. So obviously you would be like, they're not whatever, but they're so very similar in so many ways. Like the lo-fi production with the rich textures layered on top, the themes of like pleasure and indulgence and all of these themes of like the other, this idea of the other, like the outcast, the people society looks over and stuff, like, lots of themes of grief and depression in both, like both are talking about loss and in heavy ways, and these motifs and metaphors of like water are really present in both of them. And I think particularly also like Woods and Phoebe Bridgers like writing styles, I think their use of imagery and personal antidotes to tell this greater idea of this like larger thing, using such a hyper specific personal I'm sitting on a chair and there's a brown table in front of me to talk about this grander idea about what the world means. They both do that in such an incredible way, different but kind of like similar, and their use of like flashbacks to talk about what they're going through now is like, you know, I don't like, there's so much similar things in these records, and just the heaviness and darkness of the mood and things, and I think there's so much the same in these records.
For sure.
As we love about the family album, get new perspectives, get insights that Matt and I miss. The guest episodes are pretty fucking cool. And so are you,
and
David.
So is Elvis.
So is Elvis.
So is Elvis.
But yeah, that'll do it for this week's episode of the family album. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah,
you were a
so
phenomenal guest.
Want to plug anything?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. You can check out all my stuff. I'm pretty active on Instagram. If anybody is, it's just at The Taste of Vomit. I also have a website that's just thetasteofvomit.com. Neither of which are very creative names, but easy to find.
To get the job done.
But yeah, new record out in April. It's coming out April 8th. If you're in the Philadelphia area, we're celebrating with a record release show in the 12th of April, which is in West Philadelphia at the Rotunda. It's going to be myself with my producer for this record, Hype Keach. His group Wave Generators, which also features Nasaj from New Kingdom. We got Migs Sonny, Wade Wilson. I'm going to have a bunch of special guests on my set, some of which, if you're into indie rap at all, if you're into some of the music that we talked about today, especially in Haram, you might know some of the special guests. You might know some of the special guests on the record, you know. But yeah, check out the record. And thank you for having me.
Of course, man.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. As always, I'm your host, AJ Sonari.
I'm Matt Glass.
And I am Elvis.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Wait, no, it's right there.
Thank you very much.
It's right there. You dropped it.
I'm sorry, I was going on my outro. I was in host mode. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for always listening and for your constant love and support. And we'll see you next week for Tom Hates Albums.
Peace.
Peace.